Olivia Hartley sat in the back row of the war room, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She was the only human in the vast chamber aboard the starship Celestial Horizon. Around her, 12 different alien species argued in rising tones about battle plans and defense strategies. Their voices merged into a storm of sound that the translation devices struggled to keep up with. The war with the Crixian Empire had reached a critical point. The Galactic Alliance was losing. Olivia watched the three-dimensional war map that floated above the central table. Blue lights showed Alliance ships and stations. Red lights showed enemy positions. There were far too many red lights. Captain Gregory Mitchell stood near the main entrance. He was the only other human on the ship and had been her mentor since she left Earth. This morning, he had placed a hand on her shoulder and given her clear instructions. "Just watch and listen," he had told her. "The Alliance invited you as an observer because of your engineering scores. They respect our physical strength, but they don't think much of human minds. So, don't speak unless spoken to." Olivia had nodded. At 22, she was used to being underestimated. On Earth, it was because of her age and small size. Here in space, it was because she was human. The aliens saw humans as creatures from a death world, a planet with high gravity, wild temperature swings, and dangerous levels of oxygen that made fires spread quickly. Humans were tough and resilient. That made them good soldiers. But the Alliance species didn't think humans were very smart or creative. "The supply lines cannot hold if we split our forces," said Admiral Vexler, the blue-skinned Andronian who led the Alliance fleet. His 8 fingers moved through the holographic map, pulling supply route lines into new positions. "The Crixians have cut us off here, here, and here. Then we must abandon the outer colonies," said Commander Zix, a tall, thin alien with 4 arms and skin that changed colors with his mood. Right now he was a worried shade of orange. "We cannot defend everything." "Abandoning colonies is unacceptable," rumbled General Pack, a massive rock-like being from a heavy-gravity world. His translator made his voice sound like grinding stones. "My people will not run?" The argument went in circles. Olivia watched the map, not the aliens. There was something about the enemy positions that bothered her. A pattern that didn't make sense unless you looked at it from a different angle. On Earth, she had studied military history along with her engineering courses. Human wars were messy, desperate things. Humans fought like cornered animals when they had to, breaking rules and taking huge risks. The Crixians were fighting like humans would. But the Alliance was fighting by the book. Olivia's eyes darted across the map, calculating distances and times in her head. The Alliance plan assumed the Crixians would take the most efficient path through Alliance space. But what if they weren't planning to be efficient? What if they were setting a trap? She glanced at Captain Mitchell, who gave her a small shake of his head. "Don't speak up," his eyes warned, but Olivia saw it clearly now. The Crixian fleet wasn't positioned to push forward along the expected route. They were spread too thin there, leaving them vulnerable. Instead, they had hidden strength along a different path, one that looked unimportant unless you noticed the small mining outpost that could refuel their entire fleet. The Alliance was about to walk into a massive trap. "We will reinforce the main trade corridor and pull back from these 3 sectors, Admiral Vexler decided, his tone final. "It will cost us, but we can rebuild later after we've stopped their main advance." "That is exactly what they want you to do," Olivia said quietly. The room went silent. Every alien head turned toward her. Some species had multiple sets of eyes, all now fixed on the small human female in the back row. Captain Mitchell closed his eyes briefly, as if pained. "What did you say, human?" Admiral Vexler asked, his translator making the words sound colder than perhaps he intended. Olivia swallowed hard but met his gaze. "I said that's what the Crixians want you to do, Admiral. They're not planning to advance along the trade corridor." "That's a feint." "A what?" asked Commander Zix. "A trick," Olivia explained. "They want you to think that's their target, so you'll move your ships there." Admiral Vexler's upper eye ridges drew together. "You were invited to observe Earth, human, not to advise on military matters beyond your understanding." Olivia stood up. Her heart beat fast, but her voice remained steady. "With respect, Admiral, I see something in the map you've missed." The room erupted in murmurs and clicks and whistles, the sounds of a dozen species expressing shock or outrage. Captain Mitchell moved toward her, perhaps to escort her out. But Admiral Vexler raised a hand to stop him. "Approach the map, human," the Admiral said. "Show us what you think you see." Olivia walked forward, aware of every eye following her. Humans move differently than most Alliance species, quicker, more direct. Her confident stride caused a few aliens to lean back as she passed Dot at the central table. She looked up at Admiral Vexler. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like polished sapphire. His silver eyes regarded her with skepticism. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the map controls dot. After a moment's hesitation, the Admiral stepped aside. Olivia's hands hovered over the control panel. The interface was designed for aliens with more fingers than humans had, but she had studied it carefully during previous briefings she'd observed. "The Crixians have been fighting for 300 years, she said as her fingers began to move across the controls. "But humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We recognize certain patterns." She highlighted a small outpost on the edge of Alliance space. "This mining station seems unimportant, but it's the only place within 50 light years that can process crystallized hydrogen for starship fuel." Next, she traced a path from current Crixian positions to the mining station. "They've been slowly positioning scout ships along this route. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to map the way." The aliens watched in silence as she continued. Working, her movements became faster, more certain. She pulled up resource reports, ship movements from the past 3 months, and communication patterns. "They're not advancing along the trade corridor because that's not their target," Olivia said. "They want you to weaken these sectors so they can make a run at the fuel station. Once they control that, they can cut off Alliance fuel supplies and strand your fleet." Captain Mitchell had moved closer now. She could feel his presence behind her, watchful but no longer trying to stop her. "What you're suggesting would require the Crixians to sacrifice dozens of ships as a distraction," said Commander Zix, his skin now a thoughtful purple. "No commander would waste resources that way." "A human commander might," Captain Mitchell said quietly, "if the prize was worth it." Admiral Vexler studied the map with new eyes. "If the human is right, ... then we're about to lose this war," General Pack finished. Olivia stepped back from the map. She had said her piece. Now, it was up to the Alliance commanders to decide whether to listen to a human from a death world who saw war differently than they did. The war room had fallen completely silent. Olivia returned to her seat, feeling the weight of dozens of alien gazes following her. She sat down, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. Admiral Vexler paced around the war map, his blue skin reflecting the holographic lights. His 8 fingers tapped against each other as he considered Olivia's words. "You believe the Crixians plan to capture the fuel station," he said finally. "It wasn't a question," Olivia nodded. "Yes, Admiral." "Based on what evidence?" Commander Zix asked. His forearms were crossed in front of his chest, and his skin had turned a doubtful yellow. "Look at their patrol patterns over the last 60 days, Olivia said. She stood again and moved toward the map, but stopped short of touching the controls. "They've been testing your response times in that sector. Small incursions, quick retreats." "Admiral." Vexler gestured for her to approach. "Show us." This time, Olivia moved with more confidence. The alien commanders made space for her at the control panel. Captain Mitchell watched from a few steps away, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "Computer, display Crixian scout ship movements for the past 60 days, Olivia requested. The map changed, showing thin red lines that traced the paths of enemy ships. Most were concentrated along the main trade corridor, but there was a clear pattern of small movements toward the seemingly unimportant mining station. "They never sent enough ships to seem like a real threat," Olivia explained. "Just enough to learn how quickly you respond and with how many ships." General Pack rumbled something in his native language before his translator caught up. "Clever. They were mapping our defense protocols." Exactly, Olivia said. And here's what's happening now. She adjusted the controls, showing current fleet positions. The main Crixian force was positioned to push along the trade corridor, but their formation had subtle weaknesses. Too few ships in key positions, vulnerable flanks. Their main fleet looks impressive, but it's designed to draw your attention. And forces, Olivia continued. Meanwhile, they have ships here, here, and here. She highlighted 3 small groups positioned in what seemed like random patterns, unless you drew a line connecting them to the fuel station. The alien commanders exchanged glances. Some looked concerned, others remained skeptical. What would you suggest, human? Admiral Vexler asked, his tone neutral. Olivia took a deep breath. She hadn't expected to be asked for a solution. She had only wanted to point out the problem. May I? She asked, gesturing to the map controls again. Admiral Vexler nodded. Olivia faced the control panel. She understood the problem clearly in her mind. Now she needed to translate that understanding into a workable plan using the Alliance's resources. Her fingers hovered over the controls for just a moment as she organized her thoughts. Then she began to work. Her hands moved across the interface with quick, precise motions. She didn't hesitate or second-guess herself. Each command flowed into the next as she rearranged ship positions, defense patterns, and supply routes. The aliens watched in silence as the humans' fingers flew across the controls. 6 seconds passed, no more dot when Olivia stepped back. The war map had transformed. The holographic display now showed a completely different defense strategy. Alliance ships were repositioned to create a hidden trap of their own. Some forces remained to guard the trade corridor, but they were arranged differently, designed to slow rather than stop an advance. Meanwhile, significant forces were redirected to create an invisible net around the fuel station. What did you do? Commander Zix asked, his skin now a curious blue-green. I set a trap for their trap, Olivia said simply. You make them think their plan is working. Let them commit their forces to both attacks, then close the net. Admiral Vexler studied the new configuration with intense focus. This creates vulnerabilities along our supply lines. Temporary ones, Olivia agreed. But if we're right about their true target, those vulnerabilities won't matter. If we're wrong, She shrugged slightly. The fleet can return to standard positions within 12 hours. General Pack moved his massive stone body closer to the map. The human's plan has merit. It allows us to test her theory without committing irrevocably. The war room erupted in voices again as the alien commanders debated the new strategy. Some supported it immediately. Others raised objections about specific details. A few dismissed it entirely because it came from a human. Captain Mitchell finally approached and stood beside Olivia. You didn't just find the problem, he said quietly. You solved it too. I hope so, Olivia replied. Where did you learn to do that? He asked. Nodding toward the map she had reconfigured in 6 seconds, Olivia gave a small smile. I play a lot of strategy games. A sharp sound cut through the debate. Admiral Vexler striking his command staff against the floor. The room fell silent. We will implement the human's plan, he announced. His silver eyes found Olivia. Not because we are desperate, though. We are. Not because we have no better options, though that may be true as well. We will implement it because it is sound strategy. Commander Zix's skin flushed orange again. Admiral, with respect, we cannot base our entire defense on the intuition of a Deathworlder who saw what we did not, Admiral Vexler interrupted. Who recognized a pattern that 12 senior commanders from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy missed. He turned to face the room. The Alliance was formed because we recognized that diversity brings strength. Different perspectives reveal different truths. We invited humans to join us because of their physical resilience. Perhaps we should have been more interested in their minds. The Admiral looked at Olivia again. What is your name, human? Olivia Hartley, sir. Olivia Hartley, he repeated, the alien pronunciation making her name sound musical. You will remain here for the implementation of your strategy. Your insight may be needed again. Captain Mitchell stepped forward. Admiral Specialist Hartley. is an engineer, not a military strategist. Her presence here today was meant to be observational only. Plans change, Captain, Admiral Vexler said, just as war maps do. The alien commanders dispersed to their stations, already beginning to implement the new defense plan. Orders were transmitted to ships throughout the fleet. The massive Alliance war machine began to shift its focus based on a human girl's 6 seconds of work. Olivia returned to her seat in the back of the war room. Her heart was racing, but her face remained calm. She wasn't sure if she'd just saved the Alliance or doomed it. Either way, everything had changed. Captain Mitchell sat down beside her. What you did was either very brave or very foolish, he said. Possibly both, Olivia admitted. Definitely both, he corrected with a slight smile. That's the most human thing about it. On the main screen, Alliance ships began to move into their new positions. The next 24 hours would determine whether Olivia Hartley was a hero or a cautionary tale about why humans shouldn't meddle in galactic warfare. All she could do now was wait. 6 hours passed in the war room. Olivia remained in her seat, watching the holographic map as Alliance ships moved into their new positions. Alien officers came and went, giving reports and receiving orders. Some glanced at her with curiosity. Others with suspicion. Captain Mitchell brought her a cup of water and a nutrient bar designed for humans. You should eat something, he said, sitting beside her. Olivia took the bar but didn't open it. What if I'm wrong? Then we learn and adapt, he replied. That's what humans do best. And if thousands die because of my mistake? Captain Mitchell's face grew serious. That's the burden of command, Olivia. Admiral Vexler made the final decision. Not you. Before she could respond, a young alien approached them. She was Illuvian, with pale silver skin and large, dark eyes that seemed to reflect the stars themselves. Like all her species, she moved with fluid grace. Specialist Hartley? The Illuvian asked. I am Caraval, Junior Tactical Officer. Admiral. Vexler requests your presence at the command station. Olivia stood and followed Caraval through the busy war room. As they walked, the Illuvian spoke softly. Your strategy is most unusual, Caraval said. I have studied 200 years of Alliance military doctrine, and nothing resembles your approach. Is that good or bad? Olivia asked. It is interesting. Caraval's lips curved in what might have been a smile. The Crixians will not expect it. They believe they understand how we think. They reached the central command station where Admiral Vexler stood with his senior officers. The main screen showed real-time updates from across the fleet. Specialist Hartley, the Admiral greeted her. The Crixian fleet has begun to move. Their main force advances along the trade corridor exactly as expected. And the smaller groups? Olivia asked. Commander Zix answered, his skin now a tense purple. Still in position, but showing signs of preparation for movement. They're waiting for us to commit our forces to the main corridor, Olivia said. Once they believe we've taken the bait, they'll make their move toward the fuel station. Admiral Vexler nodded. That is our assessment as well. The question now is timing. When, do we reveal our true defense posture? Olivia studied the map. This was the critical moment. Spring the trap too early, and the Crixians would retreat and formulate a new plan. Too late, and they might succeed in capturing the fuel station despite the Alliance's preparations. We need to make them fully commit, she said after a moment. That means allowing their main force to achieve what looks like a significant victory, General Pack rumbled his disagreement. That would cost lives. Yes, Olivia admitted, but fewer than if we lose the entire war. The alien commanders exchanged glances. This kind of calculated sacrifice wasn't common in Alliance strategy. Their advanced technology and superior numbers usually allowed them to overwhelm enemies without accepting significant losses. The human thinks like a Crixian, one officer muttered, not quite quietly enough. No, Captain Mitchell said firmly. She thinks like someone who has studied history. On Earth, wars weren't won by those with the best technology or the most soldiers. They were won by those who could outsmart their enemies. Admiral Vexler considered this. We will proceed as Specialist Hartley suggests. Make the Crixians believe they are winning until they fully commit both forces. Caraval stepped forward. Admiral, I volunteer to coordinate with Specialist Hartley to fine-tune the timing of our response. The Admiral nodded his approval, and soon Olivia found herself working at a tactical station with the young Illuvian officer. Despite their different backgrounds, they quickly developed an easy working relationship. Caraval knew Alliance protocols and capabilities inside and out, while Olivia contributed her unique human perspective on strategy. Your species is quite remarkable, Caraval commented as they worked. Most Alliance races evolved in stable environments where cooperation was the key to survival, but humans ... We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day, Olivia finished with a small smile. We had to get creative. Hours passed as the Crixian main fleet pushed deeper into Alliance territory along the trade corridor. Alliance ships retreated in what appeared to be disarray, but was actually a carefully choreographed withdrawal. Meanwhile, the hidden Alliance forces near the fuel station remained concealed, waiting for the signal. Reports came in of Alliance outposts falling to the enemy. Casualty numbers rose. The mood in the war room grew tense. The Crixian secondary forces have begun to move, Commander Zix announced suddenly. His skin had turned a deep blue, the Taurian color for intense focus. They are converging on the fuel station, just as predicted. All eyes turned to the holographic map. 3 groups of Crixian vessels were indeed moving toward the mining outposts that processed crystallized hydrogen. They moved with confidence, clearly believing the Alliance was fully occupied with the main attack. Their timing is perfect, Caraval observed. They waited until our forces were maximally committed to the trade corridor defense. Admiral Vexler looked at Olivia. It seems you were correct, Specialist Hartley. The question now is whether your trap will work as well as your prediction. Olivia felt the weight of every gaze in the room. It will work if the Crixians think like I expect them to. If they believe they've outsmarted us? Pride, Captain Mitchell said quietly. That's their weakness. They're so convinced of their superiority that they won't question their success. Until it's too late? Admiral Vexler straightened to his full height. Signal all ships. Prepare to execute Phase 2 of the Hartley strategy. Olivia blinked in surprise. They had named the plan after her. Throughout the Alliance fleet, captains received their new orders. Ships that had been seemingly retreating in disarray suddenly moved with coordinated purpose. Hidden vessels powered up their engines. The trap was about to be sprung on the main screen. They watched as the Crixian secondary forces approached the fuel station. The enemy ships moved in a tight formation, focused entirely on their target. They had no idea that Alliance vessels were closing in behind them, cutting off their escape route. They've taken the bait, Caraval said. Both their main fleet and their special forces are now committed. Admiral Vexler nodded gravely. Signal all ships. Execute Phase 3. Across the sector, Alliance ships revealed themselves. The carefully hidden vessels near the fuel station emerged from behind moons, from the shadow of gas giants, from the blind spots of sensor arrays. The net closed around the Crixian forces. At the same time, the seemingly retreating Alliance ships in the trade corridor suddenly reversed course, catching the Crixian main fleet between them and the reinforcements that had been waiting just out of sensor range. The war room erupted in activity as the true battle began. Officers called out reports from across the fleet. The massive holographic map filled with symbols representing hundreds of ships engaged in combat. Olivia stood beside Caraval, watching as her strategy unfolded in real time. 6 seconds of work at the war map had changed everything. Now thousands of lives hung in the balance. It's working, Caraval said softly. They didn't see it coming. Captain Mitchell placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder. The Deathworlder girl fixed the war map in 6 seconds, he said. And quite possibly saved the Alliance. Olivia said nothing. She just watched the battle unfold, hoping she had made the right choice. The battle raged for 3 hours. In the war room, Olivia and Caraval worked side by side, making small adjustments to the plan as the situation evolved. The Alliance forces had caught the Crixians by surprise, but the enemy was adapting quickly. "They're trying to break through here," Caraval said, pointing to a section of the map where Crixian ships were concentrating their firepower. "If they succeed, they could still reach the fuel station." Olivia studied the pattern. "They're desperate now. Redirect the 3rd Squadron to reinforce that position." Admiral Vexler, who had been listening nearby, nodded his approval. "Do it." As the battle continued, news spread throughout the celestial horizon about the human who had predicted the Crixian strategy. Aliens from different departments found reasons to pass through the war room, hoping to catch a glimpse of Olivia Hartley. Some were curious, others skeptical, a few openly hostile to the idea of a human having such influence. Commander Zix approached the tactical station where Olivia and Caraval worked. His skin had turned a deep green, a color Olivia hadn't seen from him before. "The Council is demanding updates," he said. "They want to know why we deviated from standard doctrine and who authorized a human to create our battle plan." Admiral Vexler didn't look away from the main screen. "Tell the Council that I take full responsibility for all tactical decisions. They can question me after we win this battle. And if we lose?" Commander Zix asked quietly. "Then it won't matter what we tell them," the Admiral replied. Captain Mitchell, who had been monitoring communications, suddenly straightened. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Crixian command ship. They're requesting to speak with the Alliance commander." The war room fell silent. This was unusual. The Crixians rarely communicated during battle. Admiral Vexler considered for a moment. "Put them through on the main screen." The holographic display shifted, and the face of a Crixian war leader appeared. Crixians looked somewhat reptilian too. Human eyes with scaled skin and vertical pupils, though they were warm-blooded and highly intelligent. This one wore the elaborate armor of a high commander. "Admiral Vexler," the Crixian said, his words translated by the ship's computer. "This is Supreme Commander Nexus of the Imperial Fleet." "I know who you are, Nexus," Admiral Vexler replied coldly. "State your purpose." The Crixian's eyes narrowed. "Your tactics today are unexpected. The Alliance has never fought this way." Before, Admiral Vexler said nothing, waiting. "Who created this strategy?" Supreme Commander Nexus demanded. "It shows a level of cunning the Alliance has never demonstrated in 2 centuries of conflict." Olivia felt every eye in the war room turned toward her. She kept her gaze fixed on her tactical display, pretending not to notice. "Does it matter?" Admiral Vexler asked. "Your forces are surrounded. Your attempt to capture our fuel station has failed. Your main fleet is cut off from reinforcements." The Crixian commander hissed softly. "This is not over, Admiral. We still have options you cannot anticipate." The transmission ended abruptly. The war room erupted in urgent discussions. "What did he mean by that?" Captain Mitchell asked. "What options do they still have?" Olivia felt a cold certainty forming in her mind. "They're going to sacrifice their ships at the fuel station," she said. The room fell silent again. "Explain," Admiral Vexler ordered. "The Crixians know they've lost this battle," Olivia said. "But they can still deny us the fuel station. If they detonate their engines near the crystallized hydrogen storage tanks, the explosion would destroy the entire facility." General Pax slammed his stone fist against the console, cracking its surface. "That would be madness. They would lose their own ships and crews." "Remember, they're fighting like Deathworlders now," Olivia said. "Like humans. When we're backed into a corner, we sometimes choose to deny the enemy a victory even if it costs us everything." Caraval was already checking sensor readings. "The Crixian ships near the fuel station are changing formation. They're moving closer to the main storage tanks." "How much time do we have?" Admiral Vexler asked. "Minutes at most," Caraval replied. Olivia's mind raced. They couldn't afford to lose the fuel station. It was too strategically important. But there was no way to stop all the Crixian ships before at least one could trigger a catastrophic explosion. "We need to evacuate the station," Captain Mitchell suggested. "There's no time," Commander Zix said, his skin now pale with stress. Olivia looked at the tactical display, searching for a solution. Then she saw it, a pattern in the station's construction she hadn't noticed before. The station has emergency containment shields, she said, pointing to the schematics. They're designed to prevent chain reactions during processing accidents. Kiraval quickly pulled up the station's specifications. She's right. But they're not designed to withstand deliberate attacks. And they would need to be activated from the main control room on the station itself. Is there anyone still on the station? Admiral Vexler asked. A skeleton crew of 12, Commander Zix reported. But they're in the residential section, not the control room. Olivia looked at the map again. How far is the nearest alliance? Ship with a shuttle? Kiraval checked. The stellar wind is 3 minutes away. But even if they launched a shuttle immediately, it wouldn't reach the station in time. The war room grew tense as everyone realized the impossible situation. The fuel station would be destroyed, along with their victory. Olivia felt a strange calm settle over her. On Earth, she had studied not just military history, but engineering under pressure. How humans solve problems when there seemed to be no solution. What about the emergency worker pods? She asked, pointing to tiny objects stored on the station's exterior. The ones maintenance crews use to move around the outside of the station? Kiraval zoomed in on the image. Yes, there are 4 pods docked at the service bay. But they're not designed for combat situations. They don't need to be, Olivia said. They just need to get someone from the residential section to the control room quickly. Understanding dawned on Admiral Vexler's face. You're suggesting we ask the station crew to make a dangerous journey through potentially hostile fire to reach the control room? Yes, Olivia said simply. It's their only chance. Our only chance. The Admiral was silent for a moment. Then he nodded to Captain Mitchell. Open a channel to the station. Explain the situation and what needs to be done. As Captain Mitchell hurried to establish communications, Olivia continued to study the tactical display. The Crixian ships were moving into their final positions. Time was running out. Even if someone reaches the control room, Commander Zix said, the containment shields might not hold against multiple ships detonating their engines. They just need to hold long enough for our ships to destroy the remaining Crixians, Olivia replied. It's not a perfect plan, but it's the only one we have. Kiraval touched Olivia's arm lightly, a gesture of solidarity. The station crew is responding, she said. They're volunteering. All of them. On the main screen, they could now see tiny dots of light moving from the residential section of the station toward the service bay where the worker pods were docked. Brave souls, General Pack rumbled. They understand what's at stake. Olivia watched as the station crew raced against time. The Crixian ships grew ever closer to their target. Alliance vessels fired continuously, trying to destroy the enemy before they could reach the station, but there were too many. It would all come down to seconds now. Just like the 6 seconds it had taken Olivia to fix the war map, the next few seconds would determine the outcome of the battle. And perhaps the fate of the entire alliance. Everyone in the war room held their breath as they watched the tiny worker pods move across the surface of the fuel station. The station crew had split into 3 teams, each taking a different route to the control room in case some didn't make it. Crixian ships are in final approach, Kiraval reported, her voice tense. 45 seconds until they're in position to detonate. Olivia couldn't take her eyes off the display. How long until the station crew reaches the control room? Estimated time, 50 seconds, Commander Zix said, his skin now almost white. With stress, Admiral Vexler turned to his weapons officer. Target all available firepower on the lead Crixian vessel. We need to buy the station crew more time. Alliance ships concentrated their attacks on the closest enemy vessel. Bright flashes lit up the display as energy weapons struck the Crixian ship's shields. Their shields are failing, Kiraval announced, but the other ships are still advancing. Captain Mitchell moved to stand beside Olivia. You've done everything you could, he said quietly. Whatever happens now, you gave the Alliance a fighting chance. Olivia nodded, but she felt a heavy weight in her chest. So many lives depended on these next few moments. If they lost the fuel station, the Alliance would eventually run out of crystallized hydrogen for their ships. The war would turn against them, and it would be her fault for not foreseeing this possibility. First team has reached the maintenance corridor, Commander Zix reported. They're 15 seconds from the control room. Crixian-led ship has been destroyed, Kiraval added. Remaining ships adjusting course, 30 seconds until they're in position. On the main screen, they could see Alliance vessels engaging. The Crixian ships at close range, trying desperately to stop them from reaching the station. But there were too many enemy vessels and they were too determined. Second team has been hit, Commander Zix said grimly. Their pod was caught in crossfire, no survivors. The war room fell silent for a moment. Then Admiral Vexler spoke. Focus. On the remaining teams. We honor the fallen by ensuring their sacrifice is not in vain. First team has reached the control room, Caraval announced. They're accessing the systems now. Olivia leaned forward as if she could somehow help the station crew by willing them to move faster. They need to activate the containment shields and then strengthen them by redirecting power from non-essential systems. Captain Mitchell relayed these instructions to the station crew. Everyone waited anxiously for a response. Crixian ships in final position, Commander Zix reported. Energy readings indicate they're preparing to overload their engines. Caraval's face lit up suddenly. Containment shields activating, they did it. On the display, a translucent blue barrier appeared around the fuel storage tanks. It was barely visible, but it represented the station's last line of defense. Energy readings from Crixian ships are spiking, Commander Zix warned. Detonation imminent? Admiral Vexler turned to Olivia. Will the shields hold? I don't know, she admitted. They weren't designed for this. The next moment seemed to stretch into eternity. The Crixian ships glowed brightly as their engines began to overload. The station's containment shields strengthened. As the crew redirected all available power, then the Crixian ships exploded. The blast was enormous, sending a shockwave across the sector. The main display briefly went white from the intensity of the explosion. When it cleared, everyone stared anxiously at the fuel station. The containment shields had held, but they were flickering dangerously. Parts of the station's outer structure were damaged, but the critical fuel storage tanks remained intact. Station status? Admiral Vexler demanded. Kiraval quickly checked the readings. Main systems damaged but functional. Containment shields at 12% and falling, but the fuel tanks are secure. And the crew in the control room? Olivia asked. There was a pause as they waited for life sign readings. Then Commander Zix's skin changed to a deep blue, a color of respect in Taurian culture. 3 life signs detected, he said. They survived. A cheer erupted across the war room. Even the most stoic alien commanders showed signs of relief and celebration. They had prevented the destruction of the fuel station and preserved their victory. Admiral Vexler turned to the main tactical display. What about the Crixian main fleet? They've ceased their advance, Captain Mitchell reported. Their formation is breaking up. Some ships are already retreating. The Supreme Commander's vessel is signaling, Caraval added. They're requesting terms. Admiral Vexler's silver eyes widened slightly, the equivalent of shocked disbelief for an Andronian. Terms? The Crixians have never requested terms before. They've never lost a major battle before, Captain Mitchell pointed out. The Admiral was silent for a moment, considering this unprecedented development. Then he straightened to his full height, opened a channel to Supreme Commander Nexus. The main screen changed to show the Crixian leader again. He looked less confident now, his scaled features tight with controlled anger. Admiral Vexler? Nexus said stiffly. The Imperial fleet finds itself in an unexpected position. You mean defeated, Admiral Vexler replied. The Crixian commander's eyes narrowed. A temporary setback, but one that requires certain adjustments? You wish to surrender? Admiral Vexler asked directly. The Empire does not surrender, Nexus hissed. We propose a temporary cessation of hostilities to allow for the recovery of survivors. Admiral Vexler glanced at Olivia, who nodded slightly. This was a face-saving way for the Crixians to retreat without admitting defeat. Very well, the Admiral agreed. You may recover your survivors. But all Crixian military vessels must withdraw from Alliance space within 12 hours. Supreme Commander Nexus gave a stiff nod. Agreed. Then his eyes scanned the war room as if searching for someone. I would know the name of the strategist who created this trap. No Andronian would think? This way, no Torian either. Admiral Vexler hesitated, then motioned for Olivia to step forward. She did so reluctantly, aware of every eye in the room watching her. This is Specialist Olivia Hartley, the Admiral said, of Earth. The Crixian commander stared at Olivia with unreadable alien eyes. A human? He said finally. The Deathworlders did this? Yes, Admiral Vexler said simply. Supreme Commander Nexus was silent for a long moment. Then he gave what might have been a gesture of respect. We will meet again, human. The Empire will not forget this day. The transmission ended, and the screen returned to showing the tactical display. The Crixian fleet was already beginning its withdrawal. Admiral Vexler turned to Olivia. It seems you have made quite an impression, Specialist Hartley, Captain Mitchell smiled. That's what happens when a Deathworlder girl fixes your war map in 6 seconds. In the days that followed, the story spread throughout the Alliance. How a human engineer had spotted a pattern that 12 senior commanders had missed. How she had reconfigured their entire defense strategy in 6 seconds. How she had helped save the crucial fuel station when all seemed lost. The Alliance Council formally recognized Olivia's contribution with their highest civilian honor. But more importantly, they began to reconsider humanity's role in the Alliance. Perhaps humans brought more to the galactic community than just physical resilience. Perhaps their unique way of thinking, shaped by evolving on a death world, was equally valuable. As for Olivia Hartley, she received a message from Earth. Her younger brother Sam had been asking about her adventures in space. She smiled as she began to record her reply. Well, Sam, she said, it all started when I sat in silence during a war meeting. And then I fixed their map in 6 seconds?